All right, let's dive into something that might just completely change how you see, well, everything. We're talking about a wild new model in physics. The idea that the weirdness of quantum mechanics, the reason time only moves forward, and even gravity itself aren't separate things at all. What if they're all just side effects of one single process? Yeah, get ready, because we're about to question the very foundations of reality. So let's just start with this one absolutely mind-bending question. What if the strangeness of the quantum world, the stubborn forward march of time, and the force of gravity that holds us to the Earth aren't actually different phenomena? What if they're all just different symptoms of the exact same underlying mechanism? That is the seriously bold claim we're going to dig into today. Now, to really get why that question is so huge, you got to look at where physics is right now. Our best theories, they're incredible, they're wildly successful, but they're also kind of like these beautiful, isolated islands. They're built on these brilliant ideas that just don't logically connect to each other. They work, for sure, but we don't really know why they work together. I mean, just think about it for a second. You've got the Born rule, right? This thing that just tells us how quantum probability works. It's just a rule we have to accept. Then over here, you have the second law of thermodynamics. That's why your coffee cools down and messes don't clean themselves up. Totally separate law. And then in another corner, you've got Einstein's brilliant idea of space-time being curved by gravity. All of these are treated like these unshakable fundamental truths. But here's the kicker. There's no bridge between them. They don't talk to each other. They just work. And this is exactly where the information manifold model, or the IMM, steps in. It looks at all these separate islands and asks the big question. What if these aren't separate laws at all? What if they are all just consequences? You know, the inevitable fallout from a single hidden engine just humming away underneath the surface of everything we see. So the IMM suggests a pretty radical shift in how we look at things. It says maybe reality isn't fundamentally about particles and forces. Maybe it's all about information. The core idea, the one big idea, is that what we experience is just a projection of a much, much richer, higher dimensional reality made of pure information. The model gives this deeper reality a name, the information manifold. Try to picture a vast, almost infinite space that contains every single possible state of a system. It's not just what is, it's all the ways things could be, all coexisting at once in this massive superposition. This is the real deal, the ultimate reality, packed with information about how every little piece relates to every other piece. And here is the absolute core of the whole thing. We never, ever get to see that full, rich manifold directly. Nope. Instead, our conscious experience is a projection of it. The best analogy is a complex, spinning 3D sculpture casting a simple, flat 2D shadow on the wall. Our reality, everything we see, feel, and measure, is that shadow. It's just a simplified map of a vastly more complex territory. Now, here's the crucial part. You can't rebuild that 3D sculpture just by looking at its shadow, right? There's just not enough information there. And it's the same thing here. When the information manifold gets projected into our experience, tons of information, all the deep, relational stuff, the phase information that makes quantum mechanics so bizarre, it gets permanently lost. It's a one-way street, no going back. And this irreversible loss of information, it has a name, and you're going to want to remember it. Projection loss. This is it. This is the single hidden engine we've been looking for. According to the IMM, this one process, this constant, unavoidable shedding of information as reality is experienced, is the master key that unlocks all the deepest laws of physics. So once you have this idea of projection loss, something truly amazing starts to happen. It's like a chain reaction kicks off, a great domino effect that starts to generate physics as we know it, piece by piece, all from this one single starting point. Okay, so this is where it gets really cool. This is how it all connects. Think of it like dominoes. First, that single act of projection, right? The moment information is lost, it leaves behind this kind of geometric residue. The model says that is what we measure as quantum probability. Boom, first domino down. We've just derived the Born rule instead of just writing it down as a given. Then these projections keep happening over and over and over. And all that lost information, it starts to pile up. That growing pile of lost info, well, that's entropy. And because you can't unlose information, time suddenly has a one-way ticket into the future. That's the arrow of time. Domino number 2. And finally, this is the big one. All that accumulated loss doesn't just sit there. It scars the very fabric of this information manifold, creating wrinkles and curves in its geometry. And what do we feel when we encounter that curvature? You guessed it, gravity. I mean, just let that sink in for a second. This leads to a truly profound, almost unbelievable implication. If gravity is just the result of all this accumulated information loss, it means that the very act of absorbing, of experiencing the universe, is what creates its large-scale structure. Our observation isn't passive, it's formative. It literally shapes reality. Yeah, a monograph on the theory puts it perfectly. Gravity is not a force, but a geometric response to accumulated informational loss. So in this picture, it's not the mass of the sun that's bending spacetime. It's the persistent observation of the sun leaving these informational scars, and those scars create the geometry that we feel as the force of gravity. Okay, I know, this all sounds incredibly abstract, right? It's all cosmic scales and quantum weirdness, but the model makes this fascinating claim that we actually experience low-energy versions of this projection loss all the time. It's not just happening near black holes or in particle accelerators, it's happening to you, right now. Have you ever had that strange, cringy feeling when you hear your own voice on a recording? Or that slight disconnect when you look at yourself in a photo? The IM says this isn't just in your head, it's physics. Your internal experience of yourself is this incredibly rich, high-dimensional, dynamic thing. But a recording, a photo, that's a flat, lower-dimensional projection of you. That uncanny feeling is the mismatch. It's the sensation of your complex internal reality being squashed down into a lossy, simplified version. You are literally feeling projection loss. Now, if we take this idea and run with it, the IMM suggests this could be a whole new way to understand human consciousness itself. What if different ways of seeing the world, what we often call neurodivergence, aren't bugs or deficits? What if they're just different, totally valid, stable geometries of this projection process? The model talks about this perspective expectation cycle. It's basically the loop where our brain predicts what's going to happen and then updates based on what it actually perceives. So from this point of view, the autism spectrum could be seen as having this incredibly high-resolution internal world, but maybe a lower bandwidth channel for projecting it outwards. And ADHD, maybe that's just a loop that updates super fast, where perspective shifts quicker than your expectations can even catch up. They're not broken systems, they're just different projection geometries. So what's the big takeaway here? If this model, or something like it, holds water, it gives us an entirely new map of reality. It reframes physics. It's no longer the study of things. It becomes the study of the geometry of information and the very nature of experience itself. So let's just recap. Let's bring it all home. The core argument here is that physics' deepest laws, quantum probability, entropy, time, gravity, might all just fall out of one single process, projection loss. That reality isn't a bunch of objects floating in a void, but a beautiful geometric structure of information. That observing the universe isn't a passive act, it's an active process that literally carves out the shape of reality. And maybe the most profound takeaway of all is that our own subjective conscious experience isn't separate from the universe. It's fundamentally tied to its most basic laws. And that leaves us with one last massive, provocative question to chew on. The information manifold model suggests we live in a universe that is shaped by the very act of being experienced. So if that's true, if the simple act of us looking at the world leaves an indelible scar that becomes its structure, then we have to ask ourselves, what kind of reality are we, all of us, creating together every single moment?